Welcome once again to a tutorial. This is about most sensors in automotive electronics. Let's say you get a code. For example, let's say you get P1066 code for throttle position sensor. Throttle position sensor is when you step on the gas pedal, you are actually activating something called the throttle plate in the throttle body, which allows air to flow into the cylinder. Now, based on the position of that plate, the more you step on the gas pedal, the more air will go into the cylinder, obviously. So, the computer uses this as a guide to tell how much air is going in, just like a mass airflow sensor, but also how much fuel the computer should allow the fuel injectors to put into each cylinders. Now, an explanation about does this automatically mean just because you get a code for oxygen sensor, mass airflow sensor, that automatically, I think most of the mistakes that are done, that people assume that's the faulty component, but it's not so. In order to go back to these things, we have to understand this is a code from a scanner or a code reader. Code reader will give you the codes. A scanner will give you all the information. So if you look, and this is a textbook that I use, obviously automotive technology, and like I said, from many years ago. However, for those of people on a scanner, you'll see the voltage go up. This is voltage. This is a TPS sensor. It's a signal. Okay? As you open up the throttle body with applying more gas, the voltage will go up. This is nice and smooth. There are no glitches. On a bad one, there's a glitch. This spot over here tells us there's a problem with the sensor. See the difference? Glitch, no glitch. We want this. We don't want this. Now, I'm not going to go and put a scope to it, and I'm not going to go get a fancy scanner for this. But let's go back to the realization, to the point that I was trying to make. Always when you get a code dealing with a sensor, it doesn't mean that's the faulty component. I'm going to break it down into simple terms. Okay? Let's go to something more simpler. Here's your TV at home. Flat screen TV. There's no picture, no power. Let's say if you would be able to put a scanner to a connector on your TV at home, it would tell you no picture on TV. Okay? Now, would you assume automatic TV is the problem? No. You know what you would do? You would go back and see if you have 120 volts AC in the outlet. Sure enough, when you do that, it brings you to the circuit breaker. As you approach the circuit breaker, you see, oh, circuit breaker is an off position. Obviously, that means no voltage to the TV. What do? You flip the switch. Flipping the switch of the circuit breaker obviously allows 120 volts to the TV, and bang, here's the picture. So the scanner in this example led us to this system to tell us there's a problem with the TV. But we do not go and change the TV automatic. That's something we don't do. First, we have to make sure it has the voltage. How does that relate to our problem? Well, TPS sensors, like I said, 5 volts from the computer, ground signal back to the computer. We have to check for these voltages. It's just not enough to go and say, okay, TPS sensor, that's the code, let me change it. Oxygen sensor, code, that's the problem. Change the oxygen sensor. No, that's not what the scanner is trying to tell you its purpose. It's trying to direct you out of all the sensors in that car. It's giving you the system that has to do with airflow, and that is a TPS sensor. Oxygen sensor fault code, it tells you, okay, something is wrong with the emissions. Whatever is coming out of that engine, either too much fuel or too little fuel, and the computer has to adjust it to make sure it is the right combination of air to fuel ratio, to make it in simplest terms. So be it the same way with these components. Okay? Now, as I specified to you before, oxygen sensor, they have a heater in it. Obviously, it has to heat up, a heater element. As I said before, the batteries from 12 volts are going to go eventually in the future to 24 volts. What will that do? Well, we want the heater in that oxygen sensor to heat up quickly as possible. Because when we start up the engine on a cold, cold day, let's say on January, right? Cold, right? We have to piss a lot of fuel into that cylinders until those oxygen sensors get up to speed or get up to temperature so that computer can pay attention to them. Because at first, computer doesn't pay attention to them. It's an open loop, it's called. So more voltage, 24 volts, more current going to the heater element in oxygen sensors. What does that mean? That means quicker, it'll heat them up, less fuel you're pissing into the cylinders. Okay? That's into the future. So why does the computer need all these sensors? The computer needs the voltage back from this sensor to tell it how much you're stepping on the gas and how much air you're letting into the air chamber, into the cylinder. And with that information, it can adjust and open and close the fuel injectors to give more fuel or less fuel. So critical information comes from the TPS. Critical information comes from the oxygen sensor. Every sensor has a purpose. The intake air temperature, everything has a purpose in it for the computer. Okay? So keep that in mind before just replacing unnecessary parts. Have to measure the voltage. If this is a 3-wire and one is ground, one is signal back to the computer, unless this is 5 volts, you have to measure 5 volts at the connector. This is the connector. 1, 2, 3. This is a potentiometer. You have to be able to sure, once you connect it, make sure you have 5 volts coming from the computer. Maybe the wire is broken from the computer to this, not giving 5 volts, or a signal back to the computer. Well, you got the code for it, but that's not enough. The computer doesn't understand what's going on. All it knows is I'm not getting information how much air is being drawn into the cylinders by the driver stepping on the gas pedal. Right? Computer is confused. What should I do? Sometimes if the TPS doesn't work, computer says no air, no fuel, it'll shut down the engine. Or idle, after idle, it'll stall or turn off, obviously, because of these conditions. It has to see air and then has to give fuel. So keep these things in mind. Like I said, you have to make sure you have 5 volts. Oxygen sensor, you have to make sure you have 12 volts at the connector before you start changing things. I know it's difficult to get to these places, but if you have a scanner, the scanner will give you that information. If you step on the gas pedal while you have the scanner, you'll see changes, variations in voltages. So anyway, please go to my channel, how to measure intake air temperature, voltage, and things like that. Joe Electronics Schematics for Auto. And please subscribe. Thanks for watching.